Are you ready? All right, let's start this meeting. Good evening and welcome to this September 8, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting of the Village of Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Pierre, please call the roll.
Trustee El Shamaz,
Here.
Trustee Freed,
Here.
Trustee Ryder.
Here.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the non-agenda items and visitor for public comments. The Committee of the Whole allocates 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the Committee of the Whole on any matter not listed in the agenda. Each person addressing the Committee of the Whole is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. I do not see an overwhelming crowd in this room. Do we have anybody on that?
We have one person listening, although I don't think he will comment. If anybody has a comment, now is the time to be recognized by raising your hand through our Zoom meeting. And nobody's raising their hand.
All right, and as I move forward, our general business, and that would be the Committee of the Whole will entertain requests from anyone present to modify the order of business to be conducted. And again, I do not see many requests.
No.
Moving forward, and that would be the consideration of the minutes of a July 28, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any changes to be noted? I do not see any mentions. It is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is our discussion for tonight. That would be a discussion regarding the municipal grocery retailers tax. Drew?
So at the most recent Finance Committee meeting, there was a conversation about whether or not the village should take action and maintain the grocery tax, which has been captured by the state for some time. And the conversation really talked about a couple different things highlighted in the memo, which was trying to protect the village's revenue as well as looking at what other alternatives exist. There's a very small table in there talking about really just a handful of options. One is maintaining the local grocery tax, which we've talked about. It's about $250,000 a year. The reason why, and if you went through all the list of communities that have chosen to adopt or to keep the grocery tax, is because it is a very reliable source of income for communities, meaning that it's going to show up, it's going to be there, and you can predict it with pretty good accuracy. The other alternative that was discussed, and not a lot of time was spent on, and Chair Ryder, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the property tax was not necessarily well received by the Finance Committee as an alternative, but it is part of the list as an alternative. There was some conversation about maybe adjusting the village's home rule sales tax. There's some data on that in the packet about what other communities have done. Some have opted to do that. And in most cases, from our research, communities that have done that have done it to capture more revenue. And I'll point out in Gurnee, who chose to do that rather than capture the existing grocery tax, they did it because the burden on their retail goods and hard goods, dry goods is greater, is more often borne by others versus residents shopping for food in their community, because they have some regional, the outlet mall and so forth, a lot of retail. And then Mundelein also captured an increase in their general sales tax rather than keeping the grocery tax. And again, I think that was another opportunity to capture more money through a different means. And then
Same for Skokie.
Same for Skokie.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing we talked about briefly was spending reductions, and really that would take the shape of putting off capital items, which I don't think was necessarily preferred, knowing that the village has a very aggressive capital schedule in front of itself for the next several years, if not decades. So So those were the main options that were discussed. And there was some conversation about the degree to which grocery tax is regressive. And we talked about a variety of revenue generating tools that are available to the village. And I put together, I would call it a simplified table of that. Most tools available to the village are regressive. And I conceded that I was very simplified in that but there is a continuum. Some things are more aggressive than others. And so, but generally speaking, just about every financial mechanism that the village has available to it by law is generally regressive to some degree. And so at the outcome of the meeting, the Finance Committee said this is something that they would prefer to share and have a conversation with the full board. And that's why it's in front of you tonight. There was a new table of information that was provided to everybody set out in front of you tonight. And it was at the request of the Finance Committee Chair, Susan Ryder, who asked staff to put this together. We had shared something similar to this list at the meeting, and it was not part of the packet. It was handed out at the meeting. And so we updated that to reflect the current conversations. There's just a handful of towns who haven't decided yet what they're going to do. Those are in the orange here labeled TBD. Some of them are talking tonight, some are talking tomorrow. And very few towns have decided not to take it. And again, some of those reasons that we already talked about, the most unique one is, I think, is Mattawa, and that their cup runneth over and that they have more sales tax than they know what to do with, so they give it back to the residents, which is a fine situation to be in. So that's really it in a nutshell. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I didn't know if you wanted to take the lead or beyond that, but that's the background of how we got here.
Yes, thank you. So I think we ended this conversation on from Chair Ryder to be on a conversation on a progressive or regressive tax scheme for the way we tax for that sales tax, but not that grocery tax. One thing I read in the package is I'm not sure this is VAT regressive, where if you have SNAP,
Yes.
you're not being taxed on that. So it's an item that actually doesn't, that is actually comforting from my standpoint. The second issue I have is, and that was a question I had for you a few minutes ago, that is, today we have grocery tax coming from Heinz, so $240,000.
And Target.
Today Target too?
Target as well.
Total, it's total 240.
Got it. So I missed that. Okay. Because I thought it was going to be tomorrow, not today. So I would hate missing on that total, basically. So my next point doesn't stand. So the conversation is, no small account is too small to count in our budget, especially since we're redoing pretty much every road we can think about in Bluff, and including cover bridges for just remaking the bridges. Actually, we need to make those bridges. And so every single revenue stream counts to update the infrastructure of our community. What do you guys think? Suzanne?
I thought I'd defer to others since I'll speak after others do. I think I had plenty of stage last time.
I respect that.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So the state had a grocery tax that they removed, and now, you know, it's following on local municipalities to decide what they want to do.
If they want to keep it or
So,
not.
in terms of impact on Lake Bluff residents, is it essentially the same, meaning that we had a tax that was removed, we'd be replacing it with a same or similar tax? In other
Correct.
words, no new impact.
That is correct.
Okay.
There's a distinction though. If we look at who shops at Heinz and Target, it is not only people from Lake Bluff, but people from outside of Lake Bluff too.
Mhm.
So I do count the fact that people outside of the community contribute to our roads and bridges.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. Well, I think the best way to state that without sharing too much information is that less than half of the sales tax receipts that the village received are from Lake Bluffers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sales, not grocery, sales,
Grocery,
groceries.
Grocery.
Grocery sales.
yeah. And it's probably even a bigger number for sales.
Okay.
If you think of the automobiles, yeah. But just, this is grocery numbers I'm quoting, saying fewer than half are paying the grocery tax.
On the data that we know.
Yes,
Right.
the data that we know.
Mhm. And that was relatively equivalent to Evanston. I read an article about the struggle that Evanston is having with this very issue, talking about it tonight. And their numbers were similar. Groceries were, I think, I want to say 55% of the groceries purchased or grocery taxes they estimated came from Evanstonians, and the others came from people outside of Evanston. Just, so I think our numbers in the 40 to 60 range, somewhere in there, coming from outside
Non-residents are paying
non-resident
most of it.
is consistent with what other communities are experiencing. Perhaps not Matawa, because everybody goes to
Right.
Conco from everywhere.
Did you have a chance to finish your point?
Yeah, I think so. In the rationale for the state dropping the sales tax or the grocery tax was to provide relief? Or do you have any sense of what that was about?
I've read about it.
Well, Bettina was our local expert on what the state did. I would consider, if you want to come
Well,
up.
what they did or why they did it are two very different things.
It's not directly relevant, but it's just.
Yeah.
If there's.
I think, yes, what was shared was there was a goal to eliminate a regressive tax, but there was other revenue taken from found at other places.
Only
Okay.
10 states still have a grocery tax.
Did you say
Florida,
only 10
only
states?
10.
Okay,
Yeah, south of Mason-Dixon primarily.
I see.
And Pritzker called it an embarrassing tax, grocery tax.
Mm-hmm.
But then
But
often,
in the fight in Springfield, as I understand it, the municipality said, but wait a minute, we're gonna lose this revenue source that is consistently available because people eat no matter what. And so it's a very consistent revenue source. We really need it. And so they prevailed upon the legislature to amend this statute that repealed it to allow municipalities to impose it at the municipal level. And not surprisingly, most municipalities have done so.
One thing in my conversations with other mayors and village presidents, especially because we get to have conversations like that. For most people, that sales tax was equivalent to the funding of their police department.
Hmm.
Okay, it was basically the bar to reach to actually fund the police department, and everybody was a little bit shocked that that did happen, that they had to find the revenue somewhere else if they were not going to be offered that tax going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Couple questions and a point. So am I understanding this correctly, Chairman Ryder,
Hmm.
that our governor said that that tax was embarrassing for the state
Mhm.
and we are now voting to do it in Lake Bluff?
Yes,
Okay. And then only 10 states in our country have a groceries tax?
that's right. At the state level.
And
I don't know about the municipalities. I
Alright.
did not read enough and study enough to know. But some have extreme, like 4% grocery tax in Tennessee, 7% in particular in states where there is no income tax, like Florida.
Sure.
They replace it with grocery tax.
Thank you.
I think there's a general, there's the world, as the world changes, think about like the MFT tax, motor fuel tax to fund the roads systems with electric vehicles. Like there's gonna have to be a shift to address that over time and how they're gonna make changes to revenue systems to match up with how the world operates. It's always seems to be in the rears, right? You're always trying to figure those things out.
But people always eat.
This is true.
Sometimes they go out to eat, other times they buy groceries.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So to trustee Shayna's question about the why, does anyone have like another answer on why the state repealed it? Is it because it's embarrassing or is there another reason? I don't think I heard the answer, so if you said it,
Okay, no, I didn't
I'd
say
love
the
to hear it
answer.
again.
I mean, so the process of removing the local grocery tax from the state, there were other taxes that were either increased or replaced, you know, so that revenue is coming back to the state in different ways, if not in that way greater than that. So there was a net operating loss cap extension for corporations that was capped. And it was extended for 3 more years, but the cap was changed from 100,000 to 500,000. So, you know, they were capped at 100,000, they didn't have to pay, now they have to pay more, but it's capped. So it's changing that. There was a sales tax vendor discount cap. So retailers could retain 1.75% of the sales tax they collected. That discount's now capped at $1,000 a month. So in my perspective, a lot of it's just shifting in other directions.
So I have a question for you on that. So if there's a shift of taxes where for corporate taxes or retailer tax, with that shift, do we see a compensated value with these other taxes for the village of Lake Bluff or?
No, it's
We
not
don't see-
shifted to the local level.
Awesome. Thank you. Any question to Bettina? Shana, Rafi, Suzanne?
Yeah, I think to the point of embarrassing or not, we were in the most regressive income or tax system in one of the 10 most regressive tax systems is Illinois, primarily because of the flat tax on income tax, which we can't affect, right? But because we have a flat tax on income tax and it can't be raised other than with a
Constitutional.
constitutional amendment to raise it to progressive, just out the bat, we're very regressive. Adding the grocery tax on top of that makes us one of the worst 20%, the bottom 20% regressive tax systems in the US, which is not a list that Pritzker wanted to be in, nor most of our supposedly, you know, Republic or Democratic senators. So I don't know further than that, although we did not want to be in the most regressive, and they tried to raise the income tax to a progressive income tax, and it failed a couple of years ago.
Go ahead, Rafi.
Question, Susan, for you. As the chair of the finance committee, is option number 4 a realistic option for you at all?
No.
Which is spending reductions?
No, and that, it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be even the year after that, but we have so much known expense coming at us that I don't think it is. Of the least bad options, the way I think about this is binary. I think about it as a 0.25% increase on other sales tax, which, by the way, does include soda and candy, and grocery tax does not include soda and candy, interestingly enough. But to go from 1.0 to 1.25 on other sales tax and give up the grocery tax or to do the grocery tax. I think of it those two options. I agree that sales tax is also regressive. It is just more optional whether to buy a lamp than a package of bread.
Can I please follow your questions to Suzanne for the, so if I were to actually, instead of being regressive, if I were to make it progressive, in that list, that 1 to 4 list, I would probably raise the property tax. That is actually a no to start with, right? That's what we said the last time.
That's my thought. I don't know that it's everybody's thought, but I didn't have appetite for raising the property tax myself. Because of our commitment. I mean, we've committed not to go above PTEL.
Got it.
And I'm comfortable taking PTEL every year, even though we could balance the budget without taking the full PTEL. But the reason I vote for it every year is because of all the known expenses we have. It's not, we could balance the budget today, we could balance the budget next year probably. But because we know we have hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in expenses in the not too distant future, I think it would be irresponsible for us to not take this, some form of tax to make up for this. I do.
Thank you. Rafi?
Thank you. So Susan, I value your feedback tremendously. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Is your suggestion increasing the home rule tax
Yeah.
or?
Yes.
Okay, that's what you're saying. That would be your best option in your opinion.
And I'll confess that I don't like either one of them. And I'm willing to hear other perspectives. The home rule tax going to 1.25 would make up the 250 we would lose in grocery tax. I don't know how buying lamps and rugs versus bread, differs in terms of who buys the lamps and rugs in Target or whatever, but it makes up the difference. And for me, those are the two options. Other people could have other options. I frankly don't love either of them. And I can be convinced to vote for the grocery tax. I really can, but I just think it's irresponsible of communities that haven't talked about this with their eyes wide open and just said, everybody's doing it. I just don't like it.
Thank you.
How do you feel, Shayna, how do you feel about that switch?
Yeah, that's why I asked the question of what was happening at the state level, because I presumed that there was the concern of what the impact is on groceries for folks who might struggle to afford groceries, and if this provides some kind of relief. And then the idea of not extending that relief to Lake Bluff residents was concerning. So I understand where you're coming from, Susan, and I tend to agree with you that if we're going to tax something, I'd much rather not have it be on food for our entire community, and more on, not that everything in the home rule sales tax category is probably discretionary, but in any case, it's most likely to be more discretionary than food. So I'm aligned with that. I think it does seem to, at least by our estimations, to result in potentially greater revenue as well. There was a note in here in the memo about whether we might consider allocating a portion of this to our police pension fund, which I also think is an interesting idea, and maybe more feasible under the home rule sales tax suggestion.
Thank you. I know the question came from you, Rafi, originally. How do you feel about that switch from grocery tax to a raise, a 0.25% increase in the home rule tax?
Yeah, I appreciate what Susan said. I'm not in love with any increase of tax, but I definitely am not a fan of applying a tax specific to groceries that impacts maybe some people who need that. I could get behind an increase in the home rule sales tax. Not applying to groceries, drugs, license, vehicles. I do think that we have really good progress in our sales tax track record, increasing month over month for the last 2 years. So I'm optimistic about what the future of that looks like. And I do think this is a huge benefit to the businesses who operate in our community. It could be a benefit to them and to attract new customers.
With that lesser 1% applied to a grocery tax is what you're saying. Yep, thank you. So I see some consensus developing. So Suzanne, you would be behind that, right?
I would.
You wouldn't? Or-
Yes, I would be behind a 1.25 sales tax in lieu of a 1% grocery tax.
Okay.
But I'm also, despite my raising this issue and being concerned about it, I also understand that there may be countervailing interests. For example, if we have people visiting restaurants, which is more discretionary than groceries, obviously, but we will tax then those meals at 0.25% more. People will notice, particularly. I noticed that Highwood, which probably does quite a bit of its business with outside diners, has a 2% other sales tax. Did I read that right? Highwood.
Mhm.
So they're getting some sales tax dollars on dining
Mhm.
that they aren't necessarily getting with groceries.
I don't think they have a standard format grocer.
They don't have a.
They don't have other,
They've got a small specialty.
right. In any event, there are puts and takes. I don't know that 0.25 is going to send somebody to Lake Forest instead of
Yeah.
Lake Bluff in our dining, but we are choosing to tax other things, which in my mind are more discretionary than bread and butter.
And I think the reliability of it is because it is bread and butter.
Right.
And where people may choose and it's more discretionary. And so that may not be as consistent in the future. There could be economic downturns and people, I'm not going to buy that lamp and, and rug, and I'm going to put that sale off. But I do need my, to feed the family. And so that's why, again, why you see that governments go for it, because it's reliable.
Right, that is one of the things that I learned in my research, is just how stable this tax is, because people need to eat. And so that is a stable form of tax that we would be choosing to forego in order to, and to obtain something slightly less stable, because non-grocery items are more discretionary.
Thank you.
Regis.
I think we have, so the thought I have, so it looks like we're reaching some sense of consensus, and I'll give you the floor next. But my quandary is, what about the pension, the police pension account? I know that, so that we would switch some of the allocations. How would that help us? Would that be beneficial to us? What is the benefit behind that by switching sources of income for these accounts, either a general account or a pension, police pension account?
Isn't it all just fungible?
It is.
It is.
I mean, you don't have to earmark it.
No, I mean, you can just do an annual review at budget time and look at what your revenue's been in either category and decide collectively that year how much you want to move to the pension fund like you did that one
Yep.
prior year.
To me, that doesn't help a whole lot.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it can make you more comfortable. Everybody needs police, everybody needs to eat, therefore grocery taxes are, but at the end of the day, it's all dollars.
Okay, so no real benefit to that. Thank you. Rafi, you wanted to say a word?
Yeah, I was gonna ask Peter a question, actually. Operationally, do we have to vote on this at our next meeting? And what happens if we miss it, what happens if we miss it at our next?
What do you, for the grocery tax?
Yes.
It has to be filed with the Department of Revenue by October. It has to be adopted and filed prior to October 1. If that doesn't happen, then it can't be applied for another 6 months, or there's a period of time where
It won't be seamless.
Right.
Yeah.
But there would be another opportunity to
It
revisit.
doesn't go away. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no sunset to it.
Okay, that's the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafi.
Thank you.
Peter. Any more questions? So it looks like we have a consensus on the idea of replacing our grocery tax by the home rule sales tax to go from 1% to 1.25% to cover the $250,000 with that we would lose to a more like 330,000 estimated tax. This is our consensus as we speak. Okay. Anything else to be subject? Drew, is there anything else we should talk about?
Well, if there's a consensus, we can bring back an ordinance at another workshop, or we can bring it to the village board, depending on if you have a preference
sales tax.
for sales tax. Yeah.
Local sales tax.
And
Just
procedurally-
there's an Ordinance.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are filing.
You have to file it.
deadlines.
Yeah, you have to file it, but I'd have to look at what those deadlines are.
Yeah, I don't know when it
Don't
would
know.
kick in.
Yeah.
But I think the basic question is, do you want to have a workshop with it in front of you with an ordinance, or you're comfortable with bringing it straight to the board?
I have a real technical issue here, that is where we have 3 out of 6 trustees on this
Mhm.
board. And I'm a little bit afraid from past experience 2 months ago that it might not work out too well for me personally. So I would prefer the second solution to bring it back to a workshop with a
Okay.
finished ordinance.
With a clear process and here's how it
Hashed out, and
unfold.
we can discuss it again.
Do I understand correctly that we have an October 1st deadline
The
to,
grocery tax.
for the grocery tax?
Yep.
I see. Okay.
That's not
Right.
forever.
So the deadline, the deadline is, so there's no gap
Yes,
between
I
the state
understand.
tax and the local tax.
If you filed it late, there'd just be a gap. You may miss a month or two of return.
Correct.
Yeah.
It might
Okay.
compensate with a 330 as opposed to 40 anyways. So, okay, so we have a directive to, we have a direction for staff and we'll reconsider that with hopefully a bigger board. And so that is it.
If there is a change of heart, Peter, I don't know if for just for the sake of the grocery tax, I don't know if you want to share with the board the behind the scenes with the DOR or no?
It's just, IDOR had got,
IDOR.
Illinois Department of Revenue.
Oh, DOR. I thought you said DUR.
they've reached out to a number of municipalities that have adopted the ordinance, their grocery tax ordinance with some very technical changes that were not clear from the statute. And substantively, we think make no difference at all, but IDOR, who is the agency that regulates all this, if they say X, we got to do X because they're the ones that are going to impose the tax. So,
Mhm.
but the village has a ordinance that IDOR would accept, if that's the correct language, if and when the village decides to do a grocery
happens.
tax.
In addition to the gap, I would think that the retailers themselves would have an interest in not having a gap. Right, because are the retailers programming their computers to,
Yeah, there's that too. There's probably, yeah.
yeah, so I'm sensitive to the gap issue, but since we're proposing to do 0.25, I guess the grocery tax would just, on January 1, it would go away, and whenever we impose the 0.25, presumably on January 1, if we did it in a timely manner, then they would just need to change their systems once, I guess. I'm thinking.
Ideally, yes.
Change
Yeah.
it and then change it back and change.
Yep.
Thank you. I believe our conversation is over. Could I please have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And we're adjourned and we'll be back in session at, in 12 minutes at 7 PM. Or actually 40 minutes at 7:00 PM.